The night air was cold and heavy with the scent of wet earth. Under the old concrete bridge at the edge of Enugu, a man named Ebuka stirred from sleep. His tattered blanket did little to fight the chill, and the sound of passing trailers rumbled through his dreams. For 10 years, this bridge had been his home, his shelter from both rain and memory. Every morning, he rose before the city came alive. He would pack the little he owned into a worn nylon bag, step out to the roadside, and begin another day that looked like the last. Sometimes, he helped drivers push broken-down vehicles for a few naira. Other times, he swept around food stalls just to get a plate of leftover rice. He never begged. He had too much pride for that. But the hunger in his eyes spoke louder than words. People who passed him by only saw a man life had defeated. None of them knew that Ebuka once had dreams, big ones. He used to be a carpenter, known for carving beautiful chairs that people admired at wedding ceremonies and church events. He had a small shop once, a place that smelled of sawdust and hard work. But one bad choice had changed everything. It began with a friend named Chijioke, who had promised him a big contract. Ebuka had trusted him, even borrowed money to buy wood. The contract never came. The debt grew teeth and chased him out of his workshop, his home, and his peace. Within months, he had lost it all. His tools, his shop, and his wife, Neka, who couldn't bear to see the man she loved crumble into poverty. He didn't blame her. He only blamed himself. Now, as he sat on the rough pavement, watching the morning light creep across the road, he wondered if fate had forgotten his name. His beard was gray, his hands calloused, but his eyes still carried a small flame, a hope he didn't know how to kill. One evening, as the rain poured hard, Ebuka huddled close to the wall under the bridge. A small group of children ran past, laughing as they tried to cover their heads with plastic. Among them was a young girl, barefoot, maybe 12 years old. She stopped when she saw him. Her eyes were curious, not afraid. "Uncle, you live here?" she asked. Ebuka nodded, too tired to talk. She frowned. "My mama says people who sleep outside are lazy." He smiled faintly. "Maybe your mama is right. Maybe not." The girl tilted her head. "What's your name?" "Ebuka." She grinned. "I'm Amora." Something about her name stirred him. Amora, the name of his daughter, the one Neka had taken when she left years ago. He hadn't seen her since she was 2. He didn't even know where they lived now. The rain softened, and Amora's friends called out for her. She waved and ran off, leaving Ebuka with a strange ache in his chest. That night, he lay awake, thinking about the girl. The way she looked at him reminded him of the daughter he lost. For the first time in years, he whispered a prayer, asking God to help him see his child again before he died. Days passed. Then weeks. The girl returned often, bringing him little things, bread, water, sometimes leftover beans wrapped in nylon. She would sit beside him and talk about school, her dreams, her mother who sold fruits by the junction. Ebuka listened quietly, nodding, offering advice when she asked. People began to notice the strange friendship between the old man under the bridge and the bright-eyed girl. Some mocked her for it, but she didn't care. There was something about Ebuka that made her feel safe, like she could tell him anything. One afternoon, she came crying. Her mother had fallen ill, and they couldn't afford medicine. Without thinking, Ebuka went to the back of the bridge, dug out a small tin he'd hidden years ago. Inside were old coins, crumpled notes, his secret savings. He gave it to her. "Take it," he said softly. "Buy the medicine. Your mother must get well." She shook her head. "But you need it." He smiled weakly. "I need peace more." Amora ran off, clutching the money. Days later, she came back with a wide smile. "My mama is fine now. She said God will bless you." Ebuka looked at her, and for the first time in 10 years, tears filled his eyes. That night, something strange happened. He dreamt of a big house with white walls and golden curtains. He saw a woman standing by the window, wearing a long blue dress. Her back was turned, but when she turned around, his heart almost stopped. It was Nneka. She smiled, and beside her stood a young woman with Amora's face, but older, glowing, regal. He woke up shaking. The dream felt too real. The next morning, when the sun rose over Enugu, a convoy of black SUVs stopped near the bridge. The sound of car doors opening echoed sharply. Ebuka sat up, thinking maybe someone important's car had broken down. But then, from one of the cars stepped out a young woman dressed in white. Her eyes scanned the area until they fell on him. She froze. Then, slowly, she walked forward. "Papa," she whispered. Ebuka's breath caught. "What did you say?" She knelt before him, tears falling freely. "Papa, it's me. Amora." He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. The girl from under the bridge, his daughter. Behind her stood another woman, Nneka. Older now, but still graceful. She placed a trembling hand over her mouth, staring at the man she once loved. Ebuka's world spun. Everything he thought he'd lost had come back in one impossible moment. But what none of them knew yet was that this was only the beginning, because when he followed them into the waiting car that day, he was stepping into a life he never imagined. And before night fell, the man who had slept under a bridge for 10 years would wake up inside a palace. Ebuka sat quietly in the back seat of the car, the leather smooth beneath his rough palms. The air conditioner hummed softly, sending a cool breeze that felt like something out of a dream. He kept glancing around, unsure if he was truly awake. His reflection in the tinted window startled him. He looked older than he remembered, a face weathered by years of hardship. But behind those tired eyes, there was something new, disbelief wrapped in hope. Amora sat beside him, holding his hand as if she feared he might vanish if she let go. She hadn't stopped talking since they left the bridge. Her voice trembled with excitement as she told him how she and her mother had been searching for him for years. Nneka, sitting in front, kept glancing back through the mirror, her eyes wet but shining. "Papa, you don't understand," Amora said, her voice full of emotion. "Mama told me everything. How you lost your workshop, how things fell apart. She said you never stopped trying." Ebuka swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "And you've grown into a woman." Amora smiled through her tears. "I had to, Papa. Life didn't wait." Nneka turned slightly, her voice calm but heavy. "When I left, I thought I was protecting her. I was angry, broken. I didn't know you'd end up like that." Ebuka looked down at his hands. "I didn't blame you. I blamed myself. Every night." The car rolled into a long driveway flanked by tall fences and bright flowers. The mansion ahead looked like something pulled from another world, its gates opening slowly as guards saluted. Ebuka's heart pounded. He had never been this close to a house so grand. The walls gleamed white, and the roof shimmered under the sun. When the car stopped, Amora jumped out first. "Papa, come," she said, pulling his hand. He stepped out, staring in silence. Everything around him seemed too clean, too polished. The scent of perfume and polished marble filled the air. He hesitated at the entrance until Nneka came beside him. "Welcome home," she said softly. Those words hit him like a wave. He wanted to reply, but his throat tightened. Servants came forward, bowing respectfully. One took his bag, an old nylon sack that looked out of place in such luxury. Inside, the mansion was even more astonishing. Chandeliers hung from high ceilings, mirrors sparkled, and the air smelled of roasted chicken and new furniture. He stood there, afraid to step on the shining tiles, afraid he might leave dirty footprints. Amora noticed and smiled. "Papa, you can walk freely. This is your house now." "Your house?" he asked, confused. Nneka nodded. "Our daughter worked hard. After finishing school, she got a scholarship abroad. She studied business and came back to build a company. one that helps people like we used to be. She's done well. Ebuka turned to Amora, his mouth open. You mean, you own this? She laughed gently. Papa, I don't own it alone. You do too. Everything I have started with you. You taught me kindness. You gave me your last money when Mema was sick, even when you had nothing. That memory shaped me. Ebuka couldn't hold back his tears anymore. He dropped to his knees, crying, not from sadness but from the overwhelming grace that filled his chest. Amora knelt with him, hugging him tightly. Nneka turned away, covering her mouth as tears ran down her face. For a while, no one spoke. The silence carried too many emotions for words. Later, after he had bathed and changed into fresh clothes, Amora led him to the dining table. There was more food than he'd seen in 10 years. Rice, chicken, vegetables, and steaming soup. He hesitated, staring at the dishes as if they might vanish. Papa, eat, Amora said. You deserve this. He took a spoonful slowly, the taste flooding him with forgotten warmth. He closed his eyes and whispered, God, thank you. After the meal, Amora guided him to a balcony overlooking a garden. The air was soft, the evening breeze gentle against his skin. From there, he could see the city far below, its lights flickering like restless stars. How did you find me? He asked quietly. Amora smiled. That day I met you under the bridge. Something about you felt familiar. When you told me your name, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I asked Mama, and she froze. She showed me an old picture. Your picture. I ran back to find you, but you weren't there. It took weeks before I saw you again. Ebuka listened, tears forming again. You mean, you knew before that last day? She nodded. Yes. I wanted to be sure before telling you. Mama said we should wait until she could come with me. That's why we came together. He looked away, the pain of wasted years pressing against his chest. 10 years, Amora. 10 years under that bridge. Every night I prayed for a sign that I hadn't been forgotten. She touched his hand gently. You weren't forgotten. God just took his time. They sat there until the stars appeared. The city lights shimmered like distant memories, and Ebuka realized how fragile time was. He thought of the people still sleeping under bridges, of the men who'd lost hope. That night, he couldn't sleep. He walked through the quiet corridors of the house, feeling small beside the tall walls. The servants bowed as he passed, calling him sir. Each time he heard it, it felt strange, almost unreal. He stepped outside to the garden, where the moonlight fell softly on the flowers. He remembered the cold nights under the bridge, the sound of rats, the smell of smoke, the rain dripping through cracks. He closed his eyes, feeling the contrast too deeply. Behind him, Nneka's voice broke the silence. You still can't believe it, can you? He turned slowly. It feels like a dream I'm scared to wake from. She came closer. I used to dream of this too. Not the mansion, but us. Together again. He sighed. I missed you. Every single day. Her eyes glistened. I missed you too, Ebuka. But I thought you'd moved on. He smiled faintly. I didn't even move roofs. How could I move on? They both laughed softly, the sound gentle and full of healing. For the first time in years, they sat side by side, no anger between them, just silence and memories. The next morning, Amora introduced him to the workers in her company. It was a big office, full of young people with eager faces. They all greeted him respectfully. She announced that she was launching a new project, one that would build shelters for the homeless in major cities. Ebuka couldn't hold back his emotion. When she asked him to be the head of the foundation, his hands shook. Me? After all I've been through? Yes, Papa, she said firmly. You understand their pain better than anyone. He nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. Then I'll do it. For all those still under the bridge. As applause filled the room, Ebuka looked at his daughter with pride. The little girl who once brought him bread under the rain had become a woman changing lives. That evening, back at the mansion, he stood at the balcony again, the city lights glowing beneath him. The man who had once been forgotten by the world was now standing where destiny had meant him to be all along. But something inside him whispered that the story wasn't over yet, that fate still had one more twist waiting in the shadows. Ebuka woke up before the sun, even though the bed beneath him felt softer than anything he ever imagined. He lay still for a moment, staring at the wide ceiling above him. It was painted white and clean, so different from the rough cement of the bridge that used to greet him each morning. Even with all the comfort around him, his heart beat fast. Everything still felt like it could disappear if he blinked too hard. He sat up slowly and placed his feet on the polished floor. The cold touch of the tiles made him remember the nights he slept on concrete, hugging his thin blanket to survive the cold wind. Now there was silence instead of honking trailers. There was calm instead of fear. Yet his chest felt heavy, like the weight of the past was still clinging to his skin. Amora knocked lightly before entering. Her smile brightened the room. "Papa, good morning," she said. He smiled back. "Good morning, my daughter." She walked to him and gave him a warm hug. "I have a surprise for you today. A big one." His eyes widened. "Another one? My heart is already full." "You will love this one," she said with a playful grin. "But first, breakfast. Mama is waiting downstairs." Ebuka followed her down the grand staircase. The walls were decorated with paintings and framed photographs. Many were of Amora at different stages of her life, graduation, awards, ceremonies. Standing there, he wished he had been part of those moments, clapping for her, calling out her name with pride. At the dining table, Neka poured tea into his cup. When their eyes met, the years they spent apart seemed to speak for them. Pain, regret, hope, and something like forgiveness passed between them without a single word spoken. After breakfast, Amora clapped her hands lightly. "Papa, come. We are going somewhere important." The three of them stepped outside to a waiting car. This time, Ebuka sat without fear, his hands calm. As they drove through Enugu, he looked out the window, watching the city he once wandered through like a ghost. Now, people waved at the cars as they passed, unaware that inside sat a man who had lived beneath their feet. They stopped in front of a huge building still under construction. Workers moved around with purpose, cement being mixed and walls rising strong. A big sign stood at the entrance. Ebuka Foundation Home of New Beginnings. Ebuka froze. His name. On a sign. On a building. He stepped forward, tears gathering instantly. Amora walked beside him, her voice soft. "Papa, this will be the first shelter. Many more will follow. People will have a safe place. A fresh start." His lips trembled. Why name it after me?" "Because you survived what many could not," she replied. "Your story will give others hope." The workers noticed him and started clapping. Some came to shake his hand. One man, his clothes dirty from work, stared at him with admiration. "Oga, you give us strength," he said. "We 2-day fight for our lives." Ebuka hugged him. "Your day will come." They toured the building, and with each room he saw, the fire inside him grew. A fire that had once been drowned by hopelessness now burned brighter than ever. Later, they drove to a radio station. The host welcomed them warmly and asked Ebuka to tell his story. His hands shook a little when the microphone turned toward him, but he breathed in deeply. "I lost everything," he began. "I slept under a bridge for 10 years. I thought the world had forgotten me. But kindness found me again through my own daughter. If you are out there, struggling, feeling invisible, please hold on. Your breakthrough might be closer than you think." The phone lines flooded with calls. Some cried as they spoke. Others thanked him for speaking up. His voice, once silent under concrete and shadows, now reached thousands. When they left the station, a small crowd gathered outside, recognizing him. They clapped and called his name. Ebuka lifted his hand and waved shyly. It felt strange being seen again. On the way home, he sat quietly, thinking about life and how quickly everything had changed. When the car rolled through the mansion gates, he noticed a sleek black car parked outside that he hadn't seen before. A tall man stepped out. He wore a fine suit and dark glasses. His presence brought a sudden coldness to the air. Nneka's expression changed immediately. Her smile faded, and worry crept into her eyes. Ebuka looked at her. Who is he? Amora held her mother's arm. Mama. Nneka swallowed nervously. His name is Kenichukwu. The man removed his glasses, revealing sharp eyes that studied every corner of the compound. Good afternoon, he said in a voice that carried too much confidence. I heard Ebuka is back. I came to see things for myself. Ebuka stepped forward cautiously. You know me? Kenichukwu smiled thinly. Of course. Everybody in this city remembers you. The carpenter who trusted the wrong friend and paid for it. Ebuka's heart dropped. Nneka whispered, Be careful with him. Amora frowned. What do you want here? Kenichukwu glanced at her with a smirk. You must be the daughter. You grew well. His tone made Ebuka feel protective, anger stirring inside him. What do you want? Ebuka repeated. Kenichukwu placed his hands behind his back. I want what belongs to me. You may have forgotten, but I never did. You still owe me. Ebuka's breath caught. Memories rushed back like a storm. The loan, the threats, the downfall. Kenichukwu stepped closer, lowering his voice. I didn't come for small money this time. Your daughter's success, your new life, everything here, part of it is mine. And I've come to claim it. Amora clenched her fists. You can't just show up and demand anything. We worked for all this. Kenichukwu laughed quietly. We will see about that. He turned and walked back to his car, leaving behind a heavy silence. The door shut loudly, and the engine started. As the car drove away, tension filled the air like smoke. Ebuka's hands shook. He stared at the gate, fear gripping him again. The kind of fear he thought he had escaped forever. Nneka touched his arm. We will handle this. You are not alone anymore. Amora nodded with fierce determination. Nobody will destroy what we built. But deep inside, Ebuka knew Kenichukwu was not a man to make empty threats. He had power, connections, and darkness behind him. The happiness that had filled the mansion now carried a shadow. Ebuka walked to his room that night unable to rest. The thought of losing everything again scratched at his heart. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, an old man who had suffered more than most. He closed his eyes and whispered, God, not again. Please. As the night deepened, a storm gathered in the distance. A storm that would test everything he had just regained. And this time, he wasn't the only one at risk. Thank you for watching this emotional journey of Ebuka, a man who went from sleeping under a bridge to waking up in a palace. His story shows that no matter how long the night is, morning will always come. If life ever pushes you down, remember that hope can rise again in the most unexpected way. Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling us the country you are watching from and what your time says right now. Your support keeps these stories alive. Stay tuned for more inspiring tales.